Welcome back to Breaking Silence here on Asia One. I'm Craig Vermay. For the people of Afghanistan, disasters no longer come one at a time. Years of war, collapsing economy, earthquakes, drought, hunger, and now, once again, devastating floods. Many people have lost their lives and more than 100 remain missing after powerful flash floods swept through the remote eastern province of Nuristan. Entire communities have been overwhelmed, homes have been destroyed, roads have been washed away. Families are desperately searching through the mud and debris, hoping to find loved ones alive. For many survivors, the nightmare is only just beginning. Rescue efforts have been hampered by the province's rugged mountains, damaged roads, and the lack of heavy equipment. Many residents have reportedly been digging through the rubble with little more than their bare hands and basic tools, waiting for help that many say has been painfully slow to arrive. The Taliban interim government has acknowledged the scale of the disaster and expressed sympathy for the victims. But critics argue sympathy is not enough. Afghanistan has suffered repeatedly deadly floods in recent years. Each time, promises are made about improving disaster preparedness and emergency response. Yet communities continue to face these disasters with limited warning systems, poor infrastructure, and inadequate rescue resources. For ordinary Afghans, this is becoming a heartbreaking pattern. A storm arrives, homes disappear, lives are lost, and survivors are often left to rely on neighbours before help reaches them. Nuristan is one of Afghanistan's most isolated provinces. Even in normal times, access to healthcare, emergency services, and transport is limited. After the floods, those challenges have become even greater. Families who have already endured years of conflict now face losing everything once again. Children have lost parents. Parents are searching for children. Entire villages have been cut off from the outside world. Afghanistan is also among the countries most vulnerable to climate change, despite contributing very little to global emissions. More intense rainfall, environmental degradation, and widespread deforestation have made flash floods increasingly destructive. At the same time, decades of conflict have left roads, bridges, and public infrastructure too weak to withstand extreme weather. The Taliban insists rescue operations are underway, but humanitarian organisations have repeatedly warned that Afghanistan disaster response capacity remains dangerously limited. International aid has fallen sharply since the Taliban returned to power, but critics argue the authorities have failed to build stronger emergency systems or invest significantly in protecting vulnerable communities. The tragedy raises difficult questions. Why do communities continue facing these disasters with so little protection? Why are rescue teams still struggling to reach victims quickly? And why, after years of repeated flooding, are so many families still left to fend for themselves? For the people of Nuristan, politics offers little comfort. They are not asking who is to blame. They are asking where the rescue teams are, where the flood is, where the shelter is, and whether anyone will still be there after the television cameras leave.
This disaster is about much more than extreme weather. It exposes the fragile state of Afghanistan itself. Years of conflict have left much of the country's infrastructure in ruins. Many rural roads remain unpaved. Emergency services are limited. Communications are poor. In remote provinces like Nuristan, even reaching affected communities can take many hours or even days. That makes every disaster deadlier. The Taliban have repeatedly called on international organisations to provide assistance following natural disasters. But critics argue that effective leadership also means preparing before tragedy strikes, investing in disaster resilience, and ensuring rescue teams have the equipment they need when lives are at risk. Climate change is making Afghanistan's weather increasingly unpredictable. Long periods of drought are often followed by intense rainfall that dry ground cannot absorb, turning rivers into torrents within minutes. For ordinary people, the consequences are devastating. A family's home can disappear in a single afternoon. A year's harvest can be washed away. Livestock, the main source of income for many rural communities, can be lost overnight. For families already living in poverty, another disaster can mean starting again with nothing. As Afghanistan faces another humanitarian emergency, many survivors are once again depending on local communities and international aid agencies to provide the support they need. For many, that raises another painful question. Why does help always seem to arrive after the tragedy rather than before it?
Search teams continue looking for the missing, but hopes of finding more survivors fade with every passing hour. For the families waiting beside rivers and piles of debris, this is no longer simply about natural disaster. It is a personal tragedy that will leave lasting scars. Afghanistan cannot stop every flood, but stronger infrastructure, better warning systems and faster emergency responses could save lives. As the country mourns once again, the pressure is growing on the Taliban to show they can do more than acknowledge disasters after they happen. People now want action, preparation and leadership before the next tragedy. Another night, another wave of drones, another barrage of missiles, and once again, ordinary people are paying the price. More than 4 years after Russia's full-scale invasion began, the war in Ukraine has entered another dangerous phase. The fighting is no longer defined by slow movements along the front line alone. It is increasingly becoming a war of long-range strikes, with both sides launching increasingly sophisticated attacks deep into each other's territory.